Hey there. So I had a lot of questions about how am I getting my files from Hatch into either xTool Studio or for cutting software, either Design Space or Silhouette Studio. So I just wanted to show you this real quick, and I'm going to show you how to export it from Hatch to xTool Studio. And I'm going to show you what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So I have my design already digitized. I'm here in the Hatch 4, and I'm gonna click over to colors. I'm in my sequence panel, and here you'll see I have my placement stitch, my tack down stitch, and then that final satin stitch. Now, I always like to use my tack down stitch for when I'm sending the SVG file or the cutting file to whatever software I'm using, and I'll show you why. So if you look at the width and the height, so we're at let's see, what is that, 11 like 0.03 or something like that. I don't have my glasses on, but it's going to change from that placement stitch to that tack down stitch to that final satin stitch. That is why I want that tack down stitch. So this will be the same as if you follow the same process. You're not going to use a laser or cutter. It's on your machine. You did your placement stitch, you put down your fabric, it does this here tack down stitch, and then you cut your fabric away from it, from around the stitches. So that is why I use this one. So then once I have just this one selected, then I'm going to go over to the output design, and I'm going to go to export cutting. So output design, and then go down to export cutting. You're going to get a pop-up. And for both the objects and the layout, I always leave mine at export selected objects only. If you select export current design, you're going to get all your layers and it's going to be a mess. And I'll show you why shortly. Now for your layout, I always leave mine as digitized. So I want it just like this. Now if you do automatically distribute it, it's going to kind of break your design apart. So say like that hole in the A or the hole in the R, those will be separated and they would cut out separately. So that is why I leave mine as digitized. And then embroidery shapes, SVG, and then the file location, wherever you want to save it to, and then the design name. If you want to rename it here, you can. If I wanted to name it Teacher XL SVG, I can. But it's gonna, when you export it, it's gonna save it as a .svg anyways. So, but you can rename it whatever you want to if you need to. I'm not gonna export it. I'm gonna cancel it because I've already saved it. And then, so I'm gonna cancel out of here, and I am going to open my xTool Studio. I already have my design here, but I'm gonna open up a new window so I can show you. Actually, I'm gonna open up two because I want to show you what happens if you export just your tack down stitch or if you export the full design. So we'll start with doing it the correct way. So I'm gonna go over to the left to import, and I'm gonna select my SVG. And this is my SVG. Looks good. I always double check my width and my height, 10.999 by 4.514. Let's go back into Hatch. 10.999 by 4.514. Beautiful. So now, I'm not connected to my machine, but I'm gonna show you the settings I've been using that have been working for me. So I'm gonna go here to material, and I always select blue denim. Now, if you want to, once you get your settings down, you can add a material. You can put a picture there, you can label it, put all the details there. I've just been using the blue denim, and I haven't had any issues. But eventually I will create my own materials for the different fabrics that I use, but I'm gonna just click apply. So in the mode, it is gonna be laying on a flat surface. The thickness, now I'm not connected to my machine, but this will just measure how high your laser needs to be away from the material. So you would click this button, but yeah, it says please connect your device. But you would click this and then it's going to tell you to measure your design, and it's just going to give you a box, and then it'll come up, it'll automatically figure out the measurements. So then we'll go over, we want to make sure we are on cut, and I have a 10 watt M2 xTool M2 laser. So if you have a 20 watt, you can play around with this setting, but I found power at 100, and then the speed, I'm going to do it at 5. Anywhere between 5 and 10 is works kind of good. Oops, clicked off of that. But I'm gonna leave it at 5. It cuts beautifully. I have no issues. I only have to do one pass, and then I'm gonna scroll down, and I want to leave it at consistent power. I want it to cut the same across the entire design. I don't mess with anything else, and that has worked great. And then once I have everything set, then I would just hit process and then have my camera on, and then I can move this around to wherever I need it placed onto my fabric. So those are the settings that I use as far as getting it from Hatch 4 and getting it into xTool Studio so my laser will cut. And I also use I put my heat and bond light onto my fabric, and I leave the backing paper on that heat and bond. I don't peel it off. Okay, now I'm going to show you the wrong way. So I have a new window. We're going to go to import, and you look, let me zoom in here, and it imported all of the layers. So the machine is gonna start cutting all these different lines and layers, and yeah, your design is gonna cut and it's gonna be a mess. Or you're gonna have to go through and ungroup. If you right click, ungroup, and then you're gonna have to go through each letter individually and delete whichever layer you don't want to cut. So it's going to be a pain, and it's going to take you a while, versus doing it this way where you just select your tack down stitch. It brings it in the correct size. You adjust your settings and you hit process and you start your cutting. Now, whether you're using a laser or a cutter machine, your Cameo, your Cricut, or whatever else, I would suggest, again, leaving that backing paper on there and taping your design down. Now, if you have a laser, you can use magnets. I just use painter's tape on all 4 corners, and I haven't had any issues. If you're using a cutter machine, I would suggest either having a very sticky mat, if it's new, that would be great, or if it's barely used, long as it's very sticky. And I would say to either tape down the 4 corners or tape it all the way around the design to make sure it doesn't shift, especially if the mat isn't that sticky. That's why I suggest make sure your mat is very sticky, but if for some reason it's not, I would make sure you have it taped down extremely well so it will not shift while it's cutting. So that is how I get my designs from Hatch 4, and this will be the same for any previous versions of Hatch as well. And I get it into xTool Studio. Now, it will be the same process if you're uploading it into, say, Design Space, or if you're uploading it into Silhouette Studio. Just make sure to double check that width and that height, because sometimes when you're, especially Silhouette Studio, it will just kind of adjust it. You may have to unlock the ratios and adjust to make sure, like, because sometimes if your ratios are locked, it may, and you put in say 10.999, it may adjust the height automatically. So make sure that's unlocked regardless of what software you're using. But I hope this helps, showing you how to get it in the correct way versus this way. That will be nothing but an extreme headache. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop them below in the comments and let me know, or let me know if you use some other settings. But once I do create my own material and I have my own settings locked in, I will be sure to share those with you as well. But thanks so much for watching this quick tutorial. I hope this helps for those that have asked, and let me know how your fabric cuts out. And oh, another thing I wanted to add really quick is the laser especially is really good if you're using a fabric that tends to fray, because that laser is kind of sealing it in as it cuts, so you're not going to have to worry about it fraying. Now, if you're using a cutter machine, you may have to use fray check, or even a lighter to seal it in, to make sure that if you're working with a fabric that does tend to fray, that it doesn't do that after the fact, after you've stitched everything out, even though your satin stitch should kind of lock that in, but you don't want any pieces of fabric that may fray sticking out past the satin stitch once you finish the design. So just had to add that little tidbit. But thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.